news for tonight. You ready, Philip?
Yes.
Caught you off guard there. It's okay. We're gonna jump into the news a little bit for tonight. And kind of the first thing that I want to kind of talk about, Philip, is really is I want to start looking forward into 2021. And there's a leading think tank out there called Burning Glass Technologies, and they recently released a report highlighting skills based on the current threats that are posed by cyber criminals in the world. They mined this data, over a billion of historical job records with 17,000 unique skills, really to try to identify skills that related to the cybersecurity landscape. And what they had found was they had found that application development, cloud security, and risk management rounded out the top three. So just to recap, they had found app devs, application development security, cloud security, and risk management rounded out the top three most in-demand skills for 2021. And what they had found was that skills like threat intelligence and incident response came in fourth and fifth, respectively. And so to put a finer point on it, they estimated like 164% projected growth in app DevSec, 115 for cloud security, but only like 37% for incident response. Now, penetration testing didn't even make that list. And so I want to start off with a really hard question for you, and I want to kind of put you on the spot where this one is. When you see reports like this, how do you balance the industry's lack of desire for strong growth in pen testing and red teaming versus the majority of new applicants to cybersecurity industry wanting to have an ethical hacking skill set?
Could you repeat that question?
No, just when you look at a focus
Yeah.
on a report like that that's focused on things like app DevSec and cloud security and risk management, you don't even see pen testing as being in the top skill sets for 2021. How do you talk to folks who want to get into pen testing and help them balance out this innate desire to want to get into pen testing when that's something that reports like this highlight isn't even a major skill that they think people are going to be hiring for in 2021?
Yeah, I think when someone's interested in pen testing, being on the red team, the thing they have to take in consideration, they're using industry data, things that they know about, but people like us has been in the industry for a while, that we know what companies are doing, and we realize that not every company has a pen test team, but companies are starting to add those. Those are things that aren't being taken into consideration. A lot of these companies are using consultants and contractors, but I think that's one of the things probably missing from that information is they're not seeing the need for it and that growing. They're just seeing what they're seeing from their sources. But I would say, that's a lot of companies are, been my experience when my last red team jobs, they were just starting to build a pen test team, a red team. So they really weren't aware of it. So I think that's one of the things that's missing. Out of that, the one that kind of surprises me the most, I guess, was the risk management.
Mm.
And I think maybe that's because maybe companies have been hiring that area and kind of got lax there. And maybe there's not a lot of people getting into the industry that are really aware of that. But the cloud security, I can definitely understand that, the need for that. So many companies going to cloud now, getting away from the on-prem computing environments. They're going to either cloud or a hybrid mix. And the application security I really see from being a pen tester, doing a lot of web app pen test and managing a lot of web application pen test, I can see the need for the secure coding part. So the application security is definitely needed. But yeah, I
When
say if you're wanting to be a pen tester, then realize that this is an industry that's growing.
do you think reports like this? I see that, I see the question about any chance to get a link to said report. Yes, I'll get a link to it towards the end of the chat, towards the end of the segment a little bit, but I do have a link to that report. Um, when when we look at pen testing on a skill set, especially as we look forward, do you think that maybe sometimes these reports say app DevSec and they don't understand that there's a difference between somebody who does SDLC, secure coding, something like that, and somebody who actually does pen testing, and they're just lumping it all together?
Yeah, I agree. They're not separating that out because some companies have an application security team, but they're doing web app pen testing. So I think it's just the definition from company to company. That's a great point.
Do you when there's reports like this that come out, Should folks who see that and don't see penetration testing on the list, should they be concerned that there's not a need for penetration testers in the industry?
No, I don't think so. And also, when you're looking at any kind of sources, you need to look at multiple sources, because this one opinion doesn't mean, where did they get their sources from? What questions did they ask? Was this even one of the items, if they were, you know, questioning companies via survey or something, did they even ask about anything offensive security related? They may not have. It's only, the information is only as good as the person collecting it. And if they miss a certain area, then it's not going to be on the report. So you have to look at multiple reports, and just the way it's growing. I mean, it's one of those areas that's been around. When I got my first pen testing job in 2012, most pen testers were consultants and contractors. And one of my last couple of jobs where I was a pen tester for a bank, we had like 13 people on the team, and it was growing. And I know, like, Bank of America, Capital One, a lot of these large financial institutions, to take care of their PCI needs, they're having to hire their own pen test teams, because hiring a consulting company to do all your PCI compliance testing can get pretty expensive. So more companies are starting to do that because they don't have the money to pay consultants to do all that.
It's so I kind of got two threads that I want to pull on there with you, especially as we look at skills in 2021. Let's talk about the PCI aspect of it first. A couple years ago, I was part of PCI Council as they were looking to make some of the first revisions to the pen testing requirement on the DSS, as they were making the shift away from, you just have to do a pen test to really quantifying, things that could have an impact to card data, on the DSS. Do you think that we're going to see regulations or any other type of any other type of regulatory body or compliance body or something like that in 2021 start to put some of the tighter screws on requirements for penetration testing this year?
I can see that, because over the past couple of years or so in Europe, you've had GDPR bringing up privacy, so that, and then the laws in California that were passed. So if you're in the U.S., you're doing business in California, you need to make sure that there's no data leakage. So the best way to do that is pen testing. So I think those types of compliance are going to, privacy based, is going to drive things a little bit more. For years it's just been PCI, but I think a lot of companies are going to start doing that, because one of the things you're wanting to check for is data leakage, and the only really way to do that is through a penetration test.
A question came in and said, "What verticals did they survey?" They, apparently it was a database of 1 million, so I imagine it had the wide range of verticals that were financial sector, energy, retail, and things like that. So it was a wide range that was included in the survey that was there. Um, I think that in looking towards 2021, if you had to look at where we've been in with the last year and where we're going this year, in your mind, if you're looking forward in 2021, what do you think that the technologies or the disciplines or the skill sets people could look forward to in 2021 that are in desperate need of people to focus hard on their penetration testing?
I would say cloud is a big one, because one of the things I see is, there's a lot of pen testers out there, but a lot of people really don't know that much about how to do a proper cloud pen test. They're just using the same techniques they would for a infrastructure pen test, but there's some of the cloud management softwares that aren't really being tested thoroughly. So I think that's a really good opportunity for companies to pen test, as well as people wanting to specialize. That and application is always a good place to look. As mentioned there, the secure development, how that could be partly, web app pen testing. So the application in cloud, and one of the things too, as far as like testing related to anything that's people working from home, since we saw a large increase of people working from home due to the pandemic. So testing some of the workstations endpoints and the VPN solutions a little bit better, because you don't know what's in the home environment. So, this may seem like a trusted source, but you need to treat it like it's not. Who knows what's going on in someone's home network. So
I
testing
want you to
those.
hold that thought, because we do have a section on
Okay.
COVID. I'm gonna poke you about COVID pen testing, here a little bit later on. So hold that thought a little bit. On the cloud side though, I can definitely see the cloud pen testing side. can you just kind of briefly talk about maybe like the top 3 or 4 nuances that may be different about cloud pen testing that somebody who doesn't know would be interested to understand what those differences are?
So yeah, like your specific software to like AWS or Azure. But as far as someone, if you're in security or want to get into pen testing, if you have an Active Directory background, that's going to help you in Azure department because a lot of people are starting to host AD instances in Azure, as well as some companies are having their whole infrastructure there. So understanding Active Directory, even though that's not specific, but just learn the nuances between Active Directory in the cloud as well and the configurations compared to that. So I would say the different configuration tools within AWS, Google GPC, or Azure, and the different types of software deployment tools that are being used to make sure you can thoroughly test those, make sure things are configured correctly there, because a lot of some of these tools they use to rapidly deploy servers and systems, if you've got something insecure, then you're propagating a bunch of insecure systems with that.
Looks like we got another question coming in. Good friend, the lockdown coming through with this question. I really wonder if companies that are so cloud focused, and it seems like a lot are we creating a huge issue down the road? A school of thought that has always been preached to me in cybersecurity world is when you choose a path of convenience, we're usually giving up security when we do that. Thoughts on that? Wondering if it'll reverse at some point in time and if companies start to move back on prem. I guess the way that I'd interpret that question for you, Philip, is do you think we're putting the cart before the horse just simply because we're in COVID by by all of a sudden pivoting and shifting to cloud security, or do you think that this is sustainable, this is here to stay, and we're going to see a large adoption of cloud?
I think it's here to stay because my background, when I started out, I was a system administrator, and that was just a huge overhead and a headache that IT managers and directors don't want to deal with. So when you have someone else manage your cloud, there's less that you have to do with it, which is not always a good thing because it's not doing properly. Then you're opening yourself up to security risks. But I really don't see it coming back. I mean, with the working remotely, it also serves the purpose of your disaster recovery. It's offsite, it's not on prem. If your company needs to relocate, it's really easy to relocate compared to trying to relocate a data center. Early in my career, I worked for a mortgage company and we had like 3 or 4 data centers that we had to consolidate into a new location, and that can be a huge headache. So I don't think I see it turning back, but I do see a lot of opportunities for security breaches if people aren't careful. So they really need to make sure, even though they're not managing that, they need to make sure whoever is interacting with that is educated on cloud as well as cloud security to make sure those things are being secured. Even though someone else is hosting it, do third party pen tests to make sure that's secure, and don't just expect it to be secure by design because you know certain companies hosting everything in the cloud for you.
Do you think that if a pen tester out there right now is like cloud's hot, I want to get into cloud, I'm going to do cloud pen testing, I'm gonna be the Kevin Mitnick of cloud pen testing, and they commit a bunch of resources, and then 2022 comes around and everybody's vaccinated with COVID, and we all go back on premise. Do you think those skills are lost? Do you think that pen tester now has nothing that he can work on?
No, I think it's just going to keep increasing. Even people that had migrated now, like I said, back whenever in my sysadmin days, we did disaster recovery drills, and what really helped was with us was whenever VMware became popular, we started virtualizing a lot of things that made disaster recovery easier. But if you can host it in the cloud, then you can have your content across multiple data centers and secure. So I don't see it really going back, and I think it's a good skill set to have. Maybe some companies will, but you figure small companies getting started up, they're not going to have a bunch of system administrators to manage, and then going through the trouble to try to find people that know how to manage servers and all that. So I really don't think it's going back.
I think that's sound advice, and I mean, and we have to remember, it's easy to get caught up on cloud now with COVID, but pre-COVID, a lot of companies still had a cloud first strategy or a cloud migration strategy that was in place, kind of pre-COVID. So I think if anything, we just saw the acceleration of that, with this from a trending perspective. What are your thoughts on OT security? We had Rob Lee from Dragos on, a couple of months ago, and he mentioned how there was just a real need and a real desire and a real lack of penetration testers or just cybersecurity folks in general, who truly could participate and take interest in that OT space. What do you think about industrial control systems and the OT space?
Yeah, fortunately, one of my last jobs as a red team lead for a global consumer manufacturer company, I got to go for some training for OT pen testing and ICS environments. And yeah, there's really a lacking of skill there. But the cool thing about it is, if you're interested in hardware, if you're interested in radio frequency stuff, the RF stuff, it's a really interesting area. And I think it's kind of a good area for people to get into, that it's not overpopulated. Just your general network pen testing. There's a lot of people doing that. So I think if you're trying to get in, you want to find an area to specialize in, cloud or OT would be good. There's not a lot of good understanding. And even within the companies, you see them doing things like, well, we're not going to pen test it because we're worried that we're going to take it down. You need to take time to take things offline or have like a lab environment built so you can pen test those items. So
So
yeah, it's a really good area.
I'm gonna throw one more at you, and then I'm gonna ask you to
Okay.
rank them. Okay, blockchain. Like we see crypto, we see Bitcoin blowing up on the market, but yet we've only seen like one company, like HSBC, who has actually put, I think it was something like $50 million or something that worth of investment into trying to determine if blockchain was a viable amount of technology to use inside of their financial sector industry. What are kind of your thoughts on blockchain security, and do you think that we're 2021 or 2022 or maybe even 2023 or 2024 away from seeing a need to have penetration testers in the blockchain space?
Yeah, I see the need, and one of the things I would say that the need is probably growing is you'd see how cryptocurrency's been doing over the past few months. It's blown up. I mean, what cryptocurrency Bitcoin was like 20 something thousand in like November, and then it shot up to like 34,000 in December.
They're
So I
estimating
think,
400,000 in the next couple years.
yeah, and I think with people worried about governments being overturned and uncertainty with certain governments and places and people to be able to, I think some people are not confident in their governments, that maybe they want to start putting some money in different ways. I mean, it's interesting that years ago, how many options of these stores allowed you to pay with Bitcoin, and then some of that kind of went away, but you see more of that coming back. I was noticing on PayPal recently how you can, use Bitcoin
Yeah,
on there. So I
yeah.
think with some nations, failing and then worried about the value of the currency in that area, I think it's going to grow. And then it's just, yeah, I see that increasing. I really don't know of anyone pen testing it, but I would say that would probably be a good area to learn, because once that gets going, it's going to be like a lot of these other things like OT and ICS. Not very many people doing it, but the people that know how to do it would probably do pretty well, I would imagine.
I think I would argue that for just my 2 cents on that, right? I think if somebody were interested in Bitcoin hacking or blockchain, but it should be blockchain hacking, right? They're gonna have to be a little bit more of a pioneer, because it's not like you can go Google how do I do blockchain
Yeah,
hacking. You're gonna have to take on the true researcher to be in that space.
yeah. You're going to need your true hackers out there, the people that you know, like your HD Moores that built Metasploit, or some of these people with different exploits and hacks. Your true hackers, those are going to be the ones that are going to pioneer it.
All right, so somebody's listening to this right now. They've got some amount of money to learn, but they could only learn one ethical hacking skill this year. Do you point them through one of the three things that are going to be hot that we talked about, either cloud, Bitcoin, or OT, or do you send them a different route?
I would say pick something a little more mainstream and stable, because in case those things don't pan out or it may be hard to get into, there's going to be a lot more opportunities with your network and your application pen testing. So that's the way I would go. There, you can find mentors, you can find more readily available learning content opposed to some of these other things. I mean, even if blockchain pen testing stuff was available, it's going to be more difficult. But to try to pick up the cloud, even trying to find cloud pen testing courses. I mean, Black Hills offers one, and so does Sands, but you're kind of limited there. And if you don't have the funds to be able to afford Sands, then you're going to have to take like the Black Hills course. Uh, John Helmuth came out with a
Mm-hmm.
AWS testing book recently, so you got resources like that. So I would find things that there's more resources out there, more people that you can ask questions and mentor you along the way if you're just getting started.
I know you can I know like for AWS, right? You can still do, I think they've got maybe like I think it's the 1 year free account or something like that that you can sign up for to start practicing with the AWS side. I don't know if GCP and Azure are often the same thing. I know Azure was doing the educational one for the longest time, but I don't know if you know anything about any of those or not.
I think most of them do offer some kind of educational or limited,
Yeah.
because I know like Sambone does some courses, and I know one of his courses he had like listed up how to get like temporary access or a student account without having to pay. So I think all of them pretty much have some student or temporary access.
Okay. Oh, that's awesome for cyber skills for 2021. So I think kind of the takeaway, if I were to sum it up, is cloud security, OT, or blockchain could be fun, could be exciting, but don't hit your horse to those just yet. Start to look at some of the mainstream stuff and stay mainstream unless you just really want to be on that bleeding edge and kind of stand out there in the forward leaning zone. I'm gonna for up to the minute cybersecurity news. Make sure you follow and subscribe to the Cyber and Security channel on Twitch and YouTube. Also, make sure you turn on those notifications so that you know when we go live.